Hi, guys. Welcome back. You had a successful gastric bypass surgery a couple of years back. Now you're starting to deal with regain issues, and your wedding is just 3 short weeks away. That would be the problem of One Fat Beat, a YouTuber that we visited before. The last time she was on the show, she discussed some of the embarrassing things she had to deal with when she was over 300 pounds. Today, she's going to be talking about her strategy on avoiding the scale and at the same time keeping her weight in check so she can fit into her wedding dress. It should be good. Let's listen to this.
So, today is normally my weigh-in day. It's Tuesday, and I have been solidly for just a little over a week now, been being more mindful about my food and practicing what I want to practice with my eating habits. And I was realizing last night, right before bed, that my mental stuff is kicking in. I was 100% on board last week with not weighing myself this month. And I know that weighing myself weekly puts me in a weird mindset. I know that no matter how much I deep down know what causes weight fluctuations and that small bits of time are not adequate enough to really have a good idea of your progress and your success, I still get in that mindset that I get upset if I don't see what I hope to see. So I know the best thing for me at this point is to not weigh for this month. So I started freaking out last night. Not freaking out, but I started getting worried about whether or not that was a good choice. My mindset started going into, what if I'm not doing well? What if this isn't working and I'm gaining weight? And then at the end of the month, I've now gained weight and I'm in a worse situation and struggling with being able to fit in my dress.
Is that not the most stressful thing ever? Ladies, you know how important it is that you look wonderful in your wedding dress, right? And almost all the women that watching the show have either been in that situation or been with a close friend that was in that situation where they're ready to walk down the aisle. This wedding is not 3 years down the line or 3 months down the line. It's 3 short weeks, which is just like that, right? Tell me in the comments now what you would be thinking if you were in her boots.
That's a concern, I guess. I'm hesitating to say it's a valid concern. It is a possible concern, I guess. I think ultimately it doesn't make a lot of sense. Worst case scenario, I'm maintaining. I am being very mindful about my food. I'm not overeating, and I'm sure not eating like I was in the last couple of months. So that has to account for something, right? It has to account for something. Worst case scenario, I'm just maintaining, and that's all I need to do. I am not trying to have a 30-day crazy diet before my wedding, because that's not the point. The point is for me to not go insane 30 days before my wedding and just maintain. And if I lose a little, that's cool too. But maintaining is all I really want to do so that I can make sure I fit in my dress. That's the only thing that matters to me. Being healthy, being active. And that's the other thing that I'm not really factoring in, is that I'm trying to be more active. I'm not doing anything crazy. And right now the weather is pretty awful, so it's really hard for me to get motivated. But I am moving more, little bits here and there. I have like a portable little cycle thing, little pedaling. It's an under desk cycle, but I don't use it at the computer because I actually find it really difficult to do. But I've been using that while I'm watching TV, and I've been trying to add in more movement in general. So that is part of the equation here. I said in my previous video, and I really do mean it, a week is a long time to wait. It goes by pretty quick, but I just start getting real antsy around that 7-8 day mark. And I'm like, I really want to see how I'm doing. And even though I have no evidence to support that that is good for me or is helpful at all,
I really feel for One Fat Beat. What's interesting is we've seen some diets that might be good for her to think about, right? We've seen the egg diet, the lemonade diet, right? The sardine diet. I always tell people when we watch those videos, if you're in a pinch, I could see somebody using something like that. But what I want to ask you guys real quick is, do you have to look at the scale to know where you're at, or can you just kind of tell where you're at by how your clothes are fitting? Tell me what you guys would be thinking. Do you need the scale, or can you avoid the scale in this situation? Is she making the right move by at least trying to avoid it?
With Weight Watchers doing weekly weigh-ins, and I mean, it was just what you do to track your progress. But I know that it's not an accurate way to do that, and I know that it is not a healthy thing for me. So this is really testing me. I had a moment where I thought maybe halfway through the month, maybe I weigh myself halfway through the month, and that way I have a good idea partway through if I'm doing okay, if I'm, maintaining or losing. But then I thought, okay, well, what happens if I'm not? What happens if I've gained a little bit of weight? Do I then spend the second half of the month absolutely frantically freaking out about my food? What's the worst that can happen in a month's time with being mindful? So obviously I'm not just throwing caution to the wind and doing whatever I want. The worst that can happen is that I'm maybe up a couple of pounds. Because I would have to be seriously overeating to be gaining some serious weight. So logically, and this is me just rationalizing with myself and filming it, I need to just stay the course. And as I told my fiance yesterday, this is me practicing self-trust, practicing that I know what I'm doing, that I have the information and the data that I need to be making this decision, and that I trust myself to be making the right decision for myself. And honestly, in therapy, we've been talking about that a lot in a different context, but having confidence, self-confidence, shows up in a lot of different ways in your life. And I think this is one of them. I have so little self-confidence that I actually know what I'm doing, and that I actually have learned and gained all this information over this time, and I can make a solid decision for myself and for my body. So this is me practicing self-confidence. I have this. Okay, so it's been another week, and I figured it is time for a bit of an update on where I am, both physically and mentally. It has been quite an ordeal to get myself mentally in the right headspace for not weighing myself. I was mentioning it came a bit of a surprise to me. I know that it's very ingrained in me to be tracking my progress and weighing weekly from years and years and years of experience with that. But I also have known for a long time that doesn't work for me mentally. And the best thing that I can do is just trust myself and work through the process. So it's been difficult, but I'm feeling like I'm kind of in a groove, and I'm trusting myself a little bit more. I keep, occasionally twinging and like, oh, I kind of wish I could figure out where I'm at and how I'm doing. But this has been a really good opportunity for me to focus on non-scale victories and to focus on how I'm feeling and how I'm getting through the process and the big picture way more than these small little micro moments in in the entire process. And
Yeah, I agree with her there. When you get on the scale and you've lost 0.3 pounds and stuff, to me, it seems like it's unnecessary even to mention it. If you could go longer without looking at the scale, you'll probably end up being happier. She's a case in point right here. When she looks at the scale constantly, it has a dragging effect on her. It kind of brings her down in some way, shape, or form. She wants to learn to trust herself, and I think she's doing good. If you have to kind of walk your way away from the scale, do whatever you got to do.
And so focusing on how I'm feeling, focusing on, just is this working for me on a mental aspect? And am I feeling good? Am I feeling full? Am I feeling hungry or snacky? Do I have more energy? Those are things that are very important to me. And I've been doing really well with that. I feel like I'm sleeping fairly well. I don't know if that has anything to do with my food. I was suspicious that my increased sugar was a problem with my sleep and everything. I've been focusing on having decaf tea at night if I want a warm glass of tea, and wearing earplugs. I started wearing earplugs again. The white noise I thought was helping me sleep. I put on some white noise, like rain sounds, and I think that was sort of helping, but I found just drowning everything out and putting in earplugs has been really helpful for me. So I'm feeling really good in that respect. I'm feeling like I have energy, and that I am a bit motivated to do things where I wasn't before. That is to say, the weather is still pretty awful, and I haven't been getting outside as much as I want to, but still finding ways to keep moving and staying fairly active inside has been something I've been trying to do, and I will slowly get better at. And then the other thing that I started realizing was there are other ways that I can track my progress other than the scale. I've talked about this many times. I've celebrated those non-scale victories and those other ways to track progress before, but for some reason I'm so focused on the scale right now, and it's crazy. So for the honeymoon, we have one really fancy meal planned, and they have a dress code, and I bought a specific, very nice dress that I wanted to potentially wear for that dinner. And it just sort of barely fit me when I bought it. And I was like, that's okay. I've got, months to go. Well, we know at this point what happened as the months went on towards the end of the year. So I tried it on.
So yeah, in case you just walked in from the kitchen and your mom's watching this video without you, basically one fat beat, which is this woman here, she's getting married really, really quickly. She's going to her honeymoon now. So now not only does she have to fit into the wedding dress, but now she has to fit into this special dress she bought for her honeymoon meal and time out with her husband. And apparently this dress barely fits her. She's already been going through a little bit of a regain issue. So she might be able to fit into a wedding dress, but not necessarily the honeymoon dress. So let's see how this finishes up.
Shortly after Christmas, and we could not zip it up. My fiance could not get it zipped up for me. And it was really discouraging. I bought a replacement dress, a backup dress, and another option. It was on sale. So, I have another option for me, but I still in the back of my head was like, I was kind of looking forward to maybe wearing that dress. It's beyond something I've ever really worn before. And I'm just keeping it in the back of my head. And I realized the other day I can try that on right now and get a good gauge of my progress and how things are going by trying on the dress instead of stepping on the scale. So I tried on the dress and we were able to get it zipped. And not only that, it didn't feel overly tight. I felt like that was very promising. And that was a really good opportunity for me to take a breath and just say, chill out, Stephanie. You've got this. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I have to trust myself. The whole point of learning and growing and paying attention and being mindful is so that I can actually do something with that information. So I'm working on trusting myself. I'm halfway through the month. I am 19 days away from getting married. I've got a lot going on, but I feel like I've got things handled and I feel like I have things under control. I also had a really crazy weekend. The temperatures dipped really, really low and our hot water pipes froze. So it was a really rough weekend of babysitting the house and keeping faucets running and trying to thaw things out and not being able to shower for a couple of days. And it was a bit of a rough weekend. And I had a couple of times where I really thought it would be nice to just order some food and take a moment to not think about everything that I'm doing right now.
Oh, I'm so glad she said that. We were kind of talking the other day as we were walking about the idea that a lot of times we just eat because we're bored. This is one of those times. She might not have been bored, but she's sitting there. She's got a million things going on, thinking about her wedding, thinking about dresses, thinking about this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden, you're there at the end of the day. You're a little exhausted. Maybe you don't want to cook yourself something, or maybe you already ate, but you still feel like you would love to get some takeout or some DoorDash, right? Or Uber Eats or Grubhub or whatever the case might be. Let us know in the comments if you've kind of had to deal with these inner demons yourself.
And I stopped myself a couple of times. So that's not going to solve your problem. What we're making for dinner has no need for hot water. So I mean, and if we needed it, we could boil it. Like there's no reason, there's no legitimate reason to have to order food. And it wasn't going to solve my problem. It wasn't going to fix my problem. And I had all of my food planned out. I had delicious meals settled and figured out. And I did. I plugged through this weekend. I got through those uncomfortable feelings, and I had things handled and under control. And I feel like I am actually making good, positive decisions for myself.
Bravo. Good job, One Fat Beat. Listen, this video is about 4 months old, which means if you visit One Fat Beat's channel, you actually can kind of take a look and see how the wedding and stuff went. What I'm interested to know is usually at weddings, and I don't know too much about if it was a small wedding or a gigantic wedding, but usually weddings have some pretty good food. I wonder if she had to avoid eating too much food so that when she went on her honeymoon, she could still fit in that dress. Love how she had a backup dress plan. I assume the backup dress was a little bit more spacious, so just in case she couldn't fit in the actual dress she wanted to wear, she had a replacement. I want you guys to always be proactive, and one of the things you can tell about One Fat Beat, she likes to plan out things and be ahead of the game. That's a winning strategy. Speaking of a winning strategy, why don't you go get your shoes? Let's go for a walk. Good morning, guys. I don't know if you guys have been hearing, but I found this really fascinating. Keep in mind, your boy loves scary movies. Sometimes real life is just as scary as the movies. I'm sure you guys have heard that over the past year or so, actors from Russia, China, and now Iran have been attacking our U.S. water supply. Now, they make it sound like they've been trying to attack it, but they've been successful in places like Indiana, Pennsylvania, and Texas just within the past year or so. And they, in the place in Pennsylvania, they actually made it where the waters kind of flooded the little area. Apparently, there's over 148,000 water supplies in different independent companies throughout the United States, and apparently 70% of these companies are vulnerable. And some of their vulnerabilities are really sad and pathetic. Some of them have default passwords. You ever go into a company that you start work for and they set up your accounts and your emails and they give you a default password, right? Like the name of your company followed by a 123, just some easy default password. Apparently, there's a lot of companies where they don't even tell their employees to change the default password. And apparently some of these companies have situations where past employees that don't even work for the company can still access the company's emails and still, the company's websites with their old passwords. How is that possible that we have water utility companies that are that incompetent? So what this means is that over the next year or two, our taxes and money we have to pay is going to go even higher to take care of these companies that apparently can't take care of themselves. And you have to do something about it, right? Because otherwise, somebody's eventually going to drink some tainted water. And the way our country tends to roll things out, we find about it after the fact. I don't know if you guys remember, but even that Baltimore harbor thing where the big barge ran into the bridge and took it down like toothpicks. I've been hearing that that was some sort of cyber attack, but they don't really talk about it too much. There was a Chicago system, there was a hospital system in Chicago that went under a cyber attack. We all know about the casinos in Las Vegas that were hit by a cyber attack. Sony was hit by a North Korean cyber attack, right? Because they wanted to make that movie about Kim Jong-il or whatever, the North Korean leader's name is. And the scary thing is when you have multiple countries with multiple actors within those countries attacking us from every way, shape, or form, it starts to become just a matter of time before they're able to do something that either disrupts the flow of water to our homes or makes that water unpotable, undrinkable, right? And I find that really to be something else. How is that not considered an act of war? And how come we're always in defense mode? Shouldn't we be proactively saying, hey, if we find your fingerprints on an attack aimed at our water system, hold on, this guy's blowing leaves around. So he's using a gas-powered leaf blower, which is far more efficient, a little bit louder, obviously, than electric leaf blowers. But do you realize that in California, they're not allowed to use gas-powered lawnmowers or leaf blowers anymore? Thank goodness in Arizona you still can, but I think we have to admit they are a little annoyingly loud. Considering it's not even 8 in the morning yet, for people to be blowing their leaf blowers that loud, a little bit irritating, but at the same time, in Arizona, it's just too hot to wait. You got to do it in the morning. So anyway, what I was saying is, wouldn't it be interesting if right when we found a state actor's fingerprints on our water supply, in other words, they find that, these Iranian folks are trying to do cyber attacks on the water supply. Wouldn't it be great if we had a country that immediately messed with their water supply? Well, Jesse, I don't know if two wrongs make a right. I don't think sitting back here collecting money from the taxpayers for this problem that's going to be a infinity problem, in other words, it's never going to end from here on out. I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is, if you mess with our water supply, we're going to defend it and we're going to shut off yours. We're going to shut off your water supply for a day, and then if you don't stop, we're going to shut your water supply off for a week, and then you can kind of deal with it. That's the way you stop those problems. That's what gets me about this country. We have this, hey, we're going to be proactive when we want to be proactive, right? In other words, when it comes to war and stuff, if we think you're going to strike us, we can do a preemptive strike. But then you're telling me that when these state actors from all these different foreign countries actually try doing stuff to our water and utilities, we're not going to react? We're not going to be proactive? You're telling me we couldn't tell Iran that if we find your fingerprints on any of our water or electrical supplies, we're going to shut yours off? You're telling me we can't do that? And then every one of these countries, if you look at a list of countries that the U.S. supplies monetary aid to, it's damn near every country on the earth. You're telling me we can't shut off that aid, give our taxpayers a little bit more money in their pocket in the process, and we can't threaten these places? Russia has 11 time zones. Did you know that? Where America has, 4 time zones? Maybe 5 with Hawaii, right? Russia has 11 time zones. You're telling me that if they turn off the water in one of our cities, you're telling me we don't have the ability to shut off the water in 10 of theirs? So there becomes the new negotiating block to the Kremlin, to the people in Russia, to Putin. You touch our water supply, we're going to cripple yours. And it's going to be quick and swift, and you're not going to like it. That's what I wish our country was about. Instead, our country is about telling the people how powerful and how wonderful we are with one part of your mouth, and then out of the other part of your mouth you talk about how we're critically behind all the other countries. Yet I can't help but go back to the idea we're spending more than the other countries combined. Oh, and by the way, you remember the other day I was talking to you about the FBI, Christopher Wray was complaining that China's cyber warfare team outled ours 50-1. And I was like, why can't they take some military money and give it to the FBI's cyber, crime outfit? Well, come to find out that our military does have a cyber crime function. So in other words, yeah, they already have money that the military's invested towards the cybercrime unit. So in other words, this extra cybercrime that the FBI and the CIA and the this and the that need, it's just more bullshit. God, these things get me irritated because it's like you can't help but feel like this country just keeps taking. So many countries around the world rely on the US military to basically serve as their military. Why aren't they paying for that service? And they should be paying handsomely because, let's be honest, in 2024, everything costs a pretty penny. So why not make these other countries not only pay for their fair share, but make up for the money that they haven't been paying over the last 50 years that we've been protecting them? It's ridiculous. Hi, good morning. Canada, your military, all the spending you do on it. Why do you guys have to spend so much military when you know if anything ever happens to you, America's got your back? It makes no sense. If every other country takes advantage of America, why doesn't Canada? Canada, quit spending half the money you do on the military because all America's going to do is protect you anyway. Which, by the way, if Canada's ever under attack, I want us to protect them. I look at Canada the same as America, and believe it or not, I look at Mexico the same as America as well. Because if any country ever attacked Mexico, they're right there on our border. That's what I want us to do. If we find out that we are in some sort of world war, let's not find out about it 5 years from now and find out that we've been in it this whole time. Let's start being proactive. I would love for our president to say, at 6 p.m. Eastern time yesterday, we went ahead and shut off the water in all of Russia. I would love that. Oh, Jesse, Russia would respond by sending a nuke. If that happens, then you'll find out that those UFOs are ours and they'll go up and they'll stop the nuke in midair. That's what I think is going to happen. Is that wishful thinking? Maybe. But I'll tell you what else are we waiting for Russia to actually shut off our water? And then what are we going to do? Nothing? God, sometimes you feel like we actually are the paper tiger. Sometimes you feel like we're actually the big dog where you find out it's just a mini pinscher or a chihuahua that sounds like a big dog. Sounds to me like when Russia, China, and countries like that say they're going to do something, they actually do it. What we do is draw lines in the sand and then watch as people cross them. It's sick. And then at the same time, every one of our politicians ends up becoming super duper rich. There's some sort of con there. There's some sort of scam. I really think they ought to do internal investigations on every one of our politicians, every single one. And if they took even $1 of dirty money from lobbyists for stupid things, they should go to jail. We should be tired. My whole life we've been told that our politicians are liars and they're greedy and they take money from lobbyists. That doesn't mean we should accept it. We should be penalizing these people and throwing them in jail. When you're a member of the government, your number one goal should be to make sure that your people, your constituents, your cities, your towns, your counties, your countries, your states, that should be your number one priority. Not finding a way to take your net worth from 1 million to 100 million. That should be an immediate jail sentence. And it shouldn't be no 6 months in jail either. You do that stuff, you're going to go to jail for 10, 15, 20 years. You start doing that and problems get solved. God, this country just backwards. Very irritating. So yeah, I guarantee you,
sometime over the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to have some water system across the country literally go out to the point where the rest of the country has to send bottled water to these people. I'm guaranteeing you that's going to happen. And then what are we going to do? Try to run through Congress and get things approved? It's ridiculous. Good morning. It's ridiculous. God, these other countries are so lucky that I'm not the king of America. Because if I was the king of America, the whole world would know, if you F with us, we're going to shut you down. And there's going to be a lot of pain and misery for you. Jesse, I thought you were a Christian. I am a Christian, but I don't believe that we should wait until we are getting our butt kicked in something to fight back. There comes a point where you have to say, you're threatening me, and if you threaten one more time, you're going to get punished. And what's the point of being the most powerful nation in the history of the world when every time we go into a conflict, we end up calling it a loss 20 years later? We don't need a 20-year war. You mess with our water, we're going to turn off your internet. By the way, did you know that? We have the ability to turn off the world's internet. If they're trying to shut us down through cyber warfare, turn off their internet. There's no such thing as the Russian internet or the Chinese internet. It's something that America makes possible for everybody around the world. Shut them off. I bet you guys didn't know that, did you? We could have the internet all to ourselves and literally shut it off on the world. Do we do that? No, of course not. What we do is we set up the internet so people can attack us through it. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. And by the way, the reason you don't turn off the internet, it's not like I'm naive to it. You have to have the internet across the world. Otherwise, what's the point? You want people to talk in real time in America only, and then in the rest of the world you can't communicate with them? It's necessary. But at the same time, we do have the kill switches within it. We can literally shut off areas of the world from getting their internet. And it's like, golly, would it really hurt to tell Russia, Iran, and China that they're about to have that happen to them? You know? God, you don't even have to turn them off for a year or for forever. You turn those countries' internet off for a day, it's going to cost them billions upon trillions, maybe even trillions of dollars in one day. Shut them down and shut them off. My God. So apparently this is the question we should ask ourselves. What's going to happen when they actually shut off a hospital's utilities and a handful of people die? Well, I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. We're not going to hear about it. That's what's going to happen. That's our game plan. We don't do anything about it. It makes you wonder if everything was just this big false statement that America's this big, strong country. For all I know, we've just been telling ourselves that. I think America finds a way to spend money horribly. How do we spend so much money and lag behind every other country? The only way that can happen is through fraud and turmoil. That's the only way. Christopher Wray, until other countries spend half as much as we do, you really shouldn't be asking for one single dollar. And for all the people that are like, God, Jesse, I agree with you on one hand, but on the other hand, we've got to be safe. Well, that's what they're hoping that we feel. That's what the country's hoping, that every time you decide, yeah, tax me another dollar, you know, whether they get that out of you happily or disgruntledly or angrily, they're still going to try to get that. Because what am I going to do? Tell people, no, let's not send more money to our defenses if all of a sudden our water systems get attacked? It's crazy. You have no choice. You have to spend more money. You have to protect. It seems like a giant racket after a while, doesn't it? Seems crazy. We spend more money on trying to... I won't even go there. On another note, the past handful of days, it's been in the mid 100s here in Arizona. And right now it's about 8 o'clock in the morning and it's already, I believe, 80 degrees. And the 80 degrees in the morning when the sun is like right there and fresh in the morning, it's such a warm heat makes me feel like the backside of the sun when it's in the evening makes me feel like that side of the sun's not as hot for some reason, right? How are you guys doing? Are you guys having a situation where maybe your 60, 70 degree temperatures are starting to get up there in the 80s and 90s? If you live in Nevada, a lot of people don't know this because when we think of Las Vegas, Nevada, we just think of all these wonderful hotels and suites and casinos, right? But did you know that Nevada has so much concrete and so many streets, right? And these giant areas where people are congregating, and the sun hits and it gets stuck there, that Nevada, Las Vegas, is literally the same temperature every day as Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, because we don't have nearly as many casinos, we're known for the heat. Nevada, they act like it doesn't happen. I wonder if they set it up that way. Don't be talking about how hot it is in Las Vegas. It is just as hot as Phoenix. Maybe minus 1 or 2 degrees. That's it. So when it's 110 in Phoenix, you can almost guarantee yourself it's 109 in Las Vegas. And I talk to my friends that work with me that live in Las Vegas, and they totally agree. They're like, Jesse, you're totally right. Every day, our temperature is almost the same as Phoenix, Arizona. Yet I'd be willing to bet your whole life you've heard about the heat of Phoenix, Arizona 100 times. You've probably never once heard about the heat of Las Vegas, Nevada. It's just as miserably hot there. And I don't know if saying concrete and people are a reason for the heat. It's obviously just the sun and where the city is located on the map, right? It just gets a really big concentration of heat. But I'm telling you, you don't want to be in Las Vegas during the summer. And if you do, you want to be inside one of those giant casinos. Have you ever walked the Strip, guys, in Las Vegas? And you think to yourself, I don't need a taxi. I don't need to take the tram. I can just walk this. Look, it's only 2 or 3 casinos down to where I need to go. When you walk across the Bellagio and the Luxor and the MGM, you quickly realize, holy crap, these casinos are like a half-mile long. And it's visually deceptive because you see these casinos and it literally looks like, hey, I'm only 10 minutes away from 3 hotels down. I can get there in a couple minutes. No, you can't. That's a 45-minute walk, and that's a lot farther than it looks. That's what's so weird. When you see mountains in Arizona, you might be 5 minutes from that mountain, but there's a good chance you're actually an hour from that mountain, right? It looks closer. That's the same effect that these suites have out in Las Vegas. And it happens to me every time I'm there, even though I know, get a cab, right? Get a taxi, take the tram. I always tell myself, I think I can just walk there. Even me, who enjoys a walk, I don't like thinking something's going to be a 10 or 15 minute walk and then finding out it's more of like a 45-minute or 1 hour walk. And remember, in Vegas, you're usually trying to dress somewhat nice because you're on vacation. And if you're trying to walk in 110 degree heat, you're going to be miserable by the time you're done with your walk. So again, if you've ever been to Las Vegas or if you live in Nevada, tell me I'm right in the comments that Las Vegas is super hot. If Phoenix is the #1 city in the country for heat, I'd be willing to bet Las Vegas is number 2. And I know people in Death Valley, California are like, well, what about us? What about you? There's only 10 or 15 of you. You don't count. I think Death Valley has like the hottest temperature ever recorded in the country. But I heard that Iraq or Iran, someplace in the Middle East, I heard that they have summers where I believe it can get up into like the mid 120s. So I think the hottest place on the planet is someplace in the Middle East, but don't quote me on that. I could be totally wrong, you know? As of tomorrow, which is Sunday for me, we will have basically 2 weeks left on this 90-day challenge, or I should say I will. Some of you are in the same boat as me. Some of you are a little bit ahead. Some of you are a little bit behind. But either way, 2 weeks left. I can't believe, walking every single day with a camera, I can't believe how quickly 70 some odd days have gone by. What's this, day 76 or day 77? One of the two. Either way, I cannot believe how fast This last 2 months or so has gone by. That goes to show you just how fast things can start to change in our life. Now, for many of you, you're about 6 to 10 pounds less than you were 2 months ago. But for many of you guys, you're still in that 3, 4, 5 pound range. Don't give up on that. Keep moving. We're starting to tip the scale in the right direction. Your boy here thought he was going to lose 30 pounds. All right, guys, so I actually was able to be proactive there and have another battery ready. So the camera gets really hot on the GoPro with the battery after just 15 or 20 minutes, especially in this heat, which makes me believe that doing camera work when it gets in the 100s is going to be impossible. But like I said, if I absolutely have to, I'll try to wake up at 5 in the morning to go on a walk, right? So what I did was I actually was able to take the battery out, let it cool down for a couple of minutes. Probably not very good for a walk to have a 5-minute intercession, but if it means that I get to finish my walk with you guys, then I'll do it by having an extra battery in my pocket that's not so hot, right? So back to what I was saying, I thought your boy was going to be able to drop 30 pounds in 90 days without any problems, but I also knew in my heart that I'm a little bit older and I was starting from a little bit heftier and chunkier than I thought, which means some of you guys are even a little bit older than me, and some of you have a little bit more weight to lose than 25 or 30 pounds. So I just want you guys to know that if it goes a little bit slower, that doesn't surprise me now that I've experienced my weight loss happening a little bit slower. Does that mean that I'm getting at an age where my testosterone levels suck? Guys, I really think my testosterone levels are fine. I actually think a lot of people who think they have low T, I think a lot of times they just have big G, big gut, right? And if you have a big gut, a lot of times it can play games with things like your libido or your drive or your stamina or just your energy levels in general. And I think a lot of times we like to jump on the, oh, I think I have low T category. Guys, a lot of times when you lose weight, you'll start to feel sexier, you know? A lot of times when you lose weight, you'll start to feel more energy. And a lot of times when you lose weight, you'll start to feel 10 years younger, okay? So believe me, if you're contemplating taking testosterone as a guy, I'm going to tell you the same thing that if you're contemplating taking Ozempic as a woman. Contemplate it after a 90-day walk. Because if you can go on a walking challenge for 90 days and you lose half of your gut, and all of a sudden you can see your pee-pee again, and all of a sudden it springs back to life, don't go getting on testosterone. I have friends, good buddies, that look muscular as all heck on the internet, and I can show you their pictures, and I think I am going to show you their pictures along with mine here in a handful of days. But they're taking stuff. You know, I saw a picture of a 60, 70-year-old man with a bunch of muscles, and they're talking about what his secret is. It is no secret. The guy's on testosterone. Oh, well, Jesse, they're only taking a small level to take them up to the level they naturally would be. If that's the case, then riddle me this. How come they never were that muscular in the past when they were relying on their own testosterone? Never. None of them. And then you see them with the T in their body, and they look like they've got the body of a 20-year-old college football athlete. Get out of here. It's a bunch of hokey malarkey. And if you were to take away that testosterone, their normal body doesn't create testosterone anymore. That's why I'm leery of a lot of these drugs that the doctors are so happy to give you. Keep in mind, a lot of these doctors get bonuses based on the subs that they give you. Based on, not the subs, the prescriptions that they give you. I almost wanted to call them a subscription. But a lot of times they get bonuses based on if they give you this medicine over this medicine. Or they get bigger bonuses, right? And I'm not saying that people get bonuses from giving testosterone to their patients. And I'm not saying that some people legitimately need it. Because some of you legitimately do need to have your hormone levels checked, men and women. But what I'm saying is, if you have an overzealous physician that's willing to give every Tom, Dick, and Harry, you know, it's not medicine, right? It's hormones. But if you're willing to give everybody this treatment so they feel the wonders of testosterone, you might be doing them a disservice, because you're making it where their natural testosterone that their body produces goes down to nothing. And that's another thing scary about this Ozempic that not many people talk about. If your insurance is only going to cover it for a couple of months or a couple of, I don't know, maybe a year or however long they're going to cover it, and you end up losing that weight, they're going to kick you off. If you don't lose a certain amount of weight, they're going to kick you off. And these medications are designed where you end up gaining that weight back plus some. That sounds to me like a drug addiction you don't want to have. So again, I don't know why all of our doctors are so, happy about these new drugs. Oh, Jesse, these drugs save lives. Yeah, they might for the people that they're intended to save lives for. But if you're telling me that every single woman that's over 200 pounds needs these drugs, I'll tell you, you're not saying a true statement at all. What every woman and man that's overweight needs is a walking routine. What every man, woman, and child needs is we need commercials on TV that tell us, quit drinking soda. God, soda is probably the worst thing you can drink. It's probably right up there with beer. With beer, at least nobody ever lies about it. You let people know you're going to drink beer, you're going to get a beer gut. Why don't we say that about soda? If you drink soda, you're going to get a beer gut as well. Do you ever think about that? Root beer is just as deadly to you as beer. It's probably more deadly. Because I know alcoholics that have been drinking 2 beers every day for their whole life. They're fine. You watch people that drink a lot of sugar every day, and you might say, well, they're a lot nicer than the alcoholic. Well, when you see them in 30 years and all their teeth have been yanked out because sugars do really horrible things to your teeth, all of a sudden you have to ask yourself, would a beer addiction been better? Remember, the only people that we can't stand that have alcohol addictions are the ones that are jerks. If everyone was a happy-go-lucky alcoholic, we probably wouldn't even consider it a problem. And if every alcoholic stayed away from driving, we probably wouldn't have a problem with them. We would actually, in those situations, if there was no such thing as drunk driving, we would probably have a bigger problem with root beer than beer. Just something in my head, not necessarily for yours. Anyway, have a wonderful day. Go on an extra walk. We'll talk soon.